Hey, what's up? This is Matt from Mount Joy, and I just did an interview on the Zach Sang Show. Check it out.
By the way, hello, beautiful human. I was looking for the camera. I'm Zach, that's Dan, and this is Matt from Mount Joy.
Hey.
Hello, everybody.
I mean, art has a way of influencing the world, whether it be through fashion or music or the visuals through a video or, I mean, this day and age, like there's so many different ways to market something and influence people, whether it be through, I don't know, for some reason Doja Cat and like the Mexican pizza came to mind. That's like the ultimate influencer move.
Right.
But done through the main vehicle, which is her music and her art and her personality. But some artists just naturally exude, whether it be through mystery or whatever. It could be either like mystery or total like just exuberance and just forward-facing, outward-facing stuff. There's this je ne sais quoi, this like thing that you can't even necessarily touch, but they're there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's, literally at a certain point in the project, the Mount Joy project, it's like you realize that there's potentially more to like than just making the music, playing the songs, whatever. There's this thing where, I think the like really important aspect of what you're describing is like people say things to you that are like shocking, right? Like this, whether it's like a family member who's passed away or like these things where like your influence on them is like super important to their story. And I think when you talk about like Doja Cat and these people who are like influencing at such a mass scale, like inside of that influence is like a super important connection to people's lives. And then you see it on this huge scale where they can sell Taco Bell, right? Or they can influence you to do things, and those things are typically like seen from the public perspective at a mass scale as like marketing, financial gain, whatever it is. But I do think at its core is something really important that trickles down to artists of all sizes. You don't have to be Doja Cat to be having a major influence on somebody's life or having an impact on somebody who otherwise would be in a worse place without you or without your art, without your music. And so, I mean, I think that's the thing that I'm after, that we're after, that is like, whatever scale it gets to is just like, can you have a positive impact on someone's life by like making music, which is like, it's innate to me. It's something I just do automatically, right? So that's the dream.
Your story is rather interesting because it's you and one core collaborator. Is that correct?
Yeah. So my friend Sam Cooper, who I grew up with outside of Philadelphia, him and I started this and kind of basically had some songs. We were out here in Los Angeles, working other jobs, doing the sort of night shift of writing songs or whatever it was, and eventually, long story short, just had a song that we were showing people, and we were like, it was this goofy song about Jesus driving an Astrovan.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a great record.
And, once we had that, we realized we needed a band, and so we kind of put together the band after that.
But you knew each other, and then you go your separate ways for years.
Correct. Yeah, so I wrote songs with Sam in high school, and he was a couple of years older than me, so he went off to college, and it's just like basically didn't hear from each other for probably 3 or 4 years.
How'd you reconnect?
We would like still send. It wasn't like we didn't have like a falling out or anything, but just went to different schools and would send each other like songs and stuff occasionally. But I moved out here to follow my girlfriend at the time, and I'd been here for like 6 months. Got a text that he was like, I'm moving to Los Angeles. He had quit his job. He actually was an attorney. He had just started working as a lawyer and hated it, which feels like a classic story. And he was like, I'm moving to LA. He was trying to be like an agent. Like he was like, I'm going to use my law degree to be an agent.
Which a lot of like that makes sense. Like there's a lot, you got to read a lot of contracts.
Yep. It made some sense at the time, But he comes out here, and long story very short, he's hating it. He's hating, I forget what agency he's working for, but he's hating it. He's like somebody's assistant, and he's just getting the dog whip, and it's terrible. And we just had this, I think the circumstances gave us the drive. You know, it was like, we got to get out of these jobs. I was like doing data entry for a company that like collected royalties for artists on streaming services. So I was literally like, you know, they had a thing where you had a couple 10-minute breaks, but it was like you had to get a certain number of like keystrokes. Like it was like they were measuring you just had to just go and just go.
Robot.
Go. Literal robot stuff. I didn't smoke, but I would take the smoke breaks because I would just stand there and be like, oh, you know, roll your neck around and stuff like that.
That's actually hell.
It's hell. It's literal hell. We're deep up in the valley. It's literal hell. It's 100 and however degrees. You go outside. You want to be inside. And yeah, that just built the hunger, I think, to just write. And yeah, that was kind of the start of
survival.
Totally.
Was Astrovan written after you guys reconnected, or was it written before? Like when you guys first, like when was that written?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think I had written it. It was really a joke. Like I was living with my girlfriend in LA doing all that, and the joke was, you know, that I was gonna try to do the music thing, and I was convincing my girlfriend, who was like, she was super smart. She was like on her way to med school. She was gonna be like this high achieving person. I'm like inputting data in the valley somewhere. My previous job was at a restaurant. And I'm telling her like I'm going to be a musician, and I'm realizing like this is not a good sell. And so the joke of Astrovan was like, look, like chicks really dig Jesus, and he was a carpenter. You know, like the line is, I don't want to see those tears again. You know, Jesus drives an Astrovan. I was just thinking of what would a carpenter drive, and I was thinking like a big white van, and Astrovan came to mind. So it was really just this joke, and I had a turn of phrase, and I'd be like, come on, like singing it to my girlfriend. And then you kind of realize when you're a songwriter, I feel like, and I've heard like actually in the Beatles documentary, they were talking about this, it's like the things you don't need to write down that you're walking down the street 4, 5, 6 days later, and you're like, I don't want to see that. And you're thinking to yourself, it's stuck in my head 6 days later. I've got it. There's something about this. So then, you know, I just sort of like continued down that path, wrote that song. I think at that point Sam was here, and it would just be a thing where I'd be like, hey, I got a thing, you know, and I would share the voice note. And he's always been really good at just sort of like taking an idea and being like, you know, I have the structure for it, and he's good at being like, maybe move this over here, something like that. And yeah, next thing you know, we recorded it. We went on Craigslist just to find a place to record it, because we didn't have a ton of resources, and we found Caleb Nelson. Well, first we found our current bassist.
Yeah, on Craigslist.
Yeah. And he was like, hey, my roommate, which is crazy, like just the way things sort of, when they finally work out. I had been in other bands that had failed, and it's just the feeling of like when things work out, it's like when you're like playing a video game. I don't know if anyone plays video games, but just like you're just slaying. Like things are just working. Like all of a sudden it's like the boss is easy to beat or something.
They fall into place.
Exactly. And so we hit up Michael on Craigslist, which like still seems like a joke when I say it, but then he's great, obviously, incredible bass player. And he's like, hey, my roommate up in North Hollywood is a talented producer, kind of looking for a shot. He can record it in our apartment in North Hollywood. We were like, shoot, we'll do it. And Caleb just produced our third record. Like, you know, the rest is history. Like, we made it in his bedroom. I was super allergic to the cats they had, so I was wearing, when I recorded Astrovan, I was wearing sunglasses and like a hooded sweatshirt, like pulled over, because I was so allergic to the environment. But yeah, it's just been a wild ride.
Sold the vocals though.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, you know when everything does fall into place, but where'd the name come from, and how did that, like, did you have the name before you had the song?
You mean the name of the band?
Mountain Joy?
Yeah. So Sam and I, like I said, we grew up together. Sam lived, there's a park where literally where Sam lives, called Valley Forge National Park. And in Valley Forge National Park, there's a Mount Joy and there's a Mount Misery. And technically Sam's house, I think, is on Mount Misery. And we used to go up there and write songs and, record. We had a little, his brother had this little 4-track thing that we would make goofy songs. And, that's really where we got our start and where I really learned how to record and all that fun stuff. And so we wanted to pay homage to that, but Mount Misery was a totally different kind of band than what we were making. So we just sort of fudged it a little bit,
Was folk always this genre, the sound that you were trying to achieve?
That's a good question, because I think it was when you're a singer-songwriter, I was coming out of that world. I just always had, when I was growing up, acoustic guitar was the thing I sort of wrote on, and it still is. But I grew up listening to 60s, 70s folk revival stuff. I was really into Bob Dylan, Paul Simon, Joni Mitchell, just the stuff. I feel like I wanted to make stuff like that, I guess. But now it's funny because I once you start making things, it's you want to make new things. You want to not be pigeoned into any one hole, I guess, which I don't think is how you say that expression. But so I guess the answer is yes and no. Now it's I just want to make weird and fun and whatever comes to mind type stuff. But I realize the industry does do a thing where it's especially in this day and age, where it's you find yourself on the pretty folk playlist or whatever it is, but then but is it okay to not do that anymore? I don't know, we'll see.
It's interesting because I do see folk as a genre, but the folk records that I'm aware of are folk songs that go mainstream.
Sure.
And you can make the case that some of those records are pure folk. You can make the case that they are kind of an in-between, but also some of the greatest songwriters of all time, a friend of mine, Skylar Grey, she's extraordinary. Celine Dion, Dr. Dre, Eminem. She was a folk, she grew up around folk. She started as a folk singer. She started writing folk music, which I also think people get confused when they say singer-songwriter could also be confused as folk. But there's a difference between the two.
Yeah, I think of folk music as storytelling and maybe not as pop. I guess there can be
structure, or
I think of it more in a way as maybe when your goal or your intention, which is totally fine, I love pop music, but when your intention is to create a pop song, I feel you have a certain structure in mind. You also maybe have a certain maybe it's storytelling within pop music, of course, too, but because of the structure, your ability to to be off the wall is a little bit harder within the, you're in a box for the most part, which is cool. And there's so much amazing music made that way. But I just think of folk music as sort of everything else that's I'm going to tell you a story about Mr. Jones or whatever it is, and you sort of get to write in sort of there's a tradition of folk music, and that has its own structure too, of course. But I think of it as sort of everything else that's not super pop structured, and now pop has such a specific production. I guess it always has, but that's an element of it too. You have acoustic guitars and instrumentation matters, I think, for folk too, and approach. It's really hard nowadays, I think, to figure out what genre is what, and I think that's ultimately a good thing. But
I agree with that, because I can make the case that folk music can go pop. Noah Kahn, Season of the Sticks, just comes to mind right now, that is jumping up playlists.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's doing 1 million streams a day. I don't know if it's going to translate into FM radio. I don't know if they're going to work it at pop. They should work it at high DC. They should do something with the record. I don't know if it's going to go pop, but it could be a pop record, but you could also categorize it as folk.
Yeah, Noah's a friend. I'm super pumped for him. But that's a great example. I think Noah actually, he has sort of a split. He splits his music where he writes intentionally pop leaning stuff, and then he has sort of a folk career, of which it would be so perfect and to what we're talking about if his folk leaning. His biggest song was one of his like folk leaning things
Which it
that went
is.
pop, which is great. And
I mean,
like,
Season of the Six, would you consider that a folk song?
yeah, I think so. But I think that you're getting at this thing, which is just that, which is really important, which I think is that for a really long time, between radio format and just the way labels approach marketing various types of music, it was very clear what everything was. And you have like things that go to pop radio that sound a certain way. But I do think with all of the social media, TikTok, all of that stuff, now it's like the people's access to things that move them is immediate, and things move outside of radio and stuff like that in a way that I think it's like, yeah, Noah wrote a folk tune that mentions Vermont and sticks and and things that feel very earthy and folky,
But also creeping on your mom. It's the perfect balance.
yeah, and but then, you know, people are drawn to it, and there's an immediate reaction on the internet to it, and so it is a pop song because it's popular, right?
But by the Lumineers, ho hey, I can look through history and like tap into a few. There's not a ton of examples, but like they definitely exist.
Right.
But you know, it's. I'm trying to wrap, and I've been preaching this for like a long time, many moons. I understand that there's a structure to a pop song, but at the end of the day, pop music has a duty to be a kind of, flywheel's not the right phrase, but like a bucket of the most popular records across all genres. Like whatever is emotionally moving you and then moving the needle, that should be what pop music is. Keeping it to structure just doesn't make it actually doesn't do the format or the genre justice.
Yeah, totally. And I think to be clear, like Mount Joy songs and the vast majority of folk songs that I think people would think of when they think of folk songs, they have a structure.
Yeah.
And it's pretty similar to pop structure.
Totally.
I think where it differs is often like, you know, you have a Bob Dylan song that, like, you know, you listen to a pop song on the radio, there's probably a max of 2 to 3 verses. You get your pre-chorus, bridge, whatever. But the only difference with a Bob Dylan song, which has all of those same ingredients, is he might do 5 verses. And at that point, it's not going to play on the radio. It's 4.5 to 5 minutes long. But he's decided that he's going to go outside of the sort of numbered structure of a pop thing. But it's still very much, he's got his chorus maybe.
Yeah, it's still pop.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you think Taylor Swift helped kind of grow this, I guess, a younger audience for folk music when she released Evermore and, or is it Evermore?
Is it Folklore?
Folklore and Evermore, 2 of them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but I think she's probably like playing into this thing too, because I guess the Noah thing's a great example, and yeah, I mean that was a huge record. Like I'm thinking specifically, I think of Folklore, that like right in the pandemic, it was like everyone was listening to that record, and but I think it just speaks to this thing where I think there's been a lot of money and resource put into pop music and music of a certain kind and artists of a certain sort of flavor of music, if you will. But I really think that if that same investment were made into some of the really talented people, you know, that record was made with the Desner twins, or one of them who is they're in the National, which is a great band. And I just think like those types of people, if given the same investment as like The Weeknd or something like that, who's also incredible. This isn't about like whether The Weeknd's better or worse than anyone else. It's just the amount of resource. Pepsi commercials for 8 weeks in a row hitting you with that song. I bet I could find songs that if I hit the American public with that level of frequency, that I could make it a big time hit song of the like of The Weeknd. Same whether it's Season of the Sticks or whether it's a Taylor Swift
Totally.
song.
Yeah, of course. If it gets synced up to a huge campaign, or if it, I mean, literally, there's so many different. If it gets the right cover on a playlist, if it gets the right, purchase spins on a radio station in the right day part with the right. There's so many different. Yeah, 100%. By the way, everything is attached to money. Almost everything.
Yeah. I think listeners should realize that when they're diving in, like, and this is not like a plug for Mount Joy or anything like that, but if you were to look at like what a label is going to spend on a Mount Joy marketing campaign versus what a label is going to spend on and rightfully so, because the ROI is there, right? Like, I'm not saying, this is not me complaining, right? It's just that understand that music, they're spending in the millions to market this as though it's whatever, a car or something that, like a big time BMW or something, versus like, what makes maybe music that's less heard by the sort of mass audience, I think it's just, like you said, is often just money.
But are you, so knowing that, and I want to get into your body's work because you have 2 out there.
3,
I'm sorry, but Rearrange Us and Orange Blood are the one I'm the most familiar with. You're also about to embark on a tour. Do you have aspirations or goals to take, mainstream is the wrong phrase, but like, what are your, better question is, what are your goals and aspirations for the music you're making, understanding how the game is played?
Yeah, so that's like a big part of it, is like, we've gotten this education over the last 5 or 6 years in the game.
You can play it though.
100%.
And you can play within the rules and still come out on top.
100%. And so I think for us, it's really about, from the beginning, we felt like, I remember what I said, like when we were like, felt like everything was locking into place. We feel like we have a really special thing, and we get that feedback. We sell, in what is, in my opinion, a lot of tickets. Like,
you're playing the Palladium next week, dude.
Yeah. And that's something we're really, really proud of. But I think it's also, for us, it's just proof that we can. I don't know what the limit is. You talked about like mainstream. I don't know what the limit is for our band, but the goal is there's like this clear focus of just like as many people as we can bring into this, and as many different types of people, listeners of different types of music. We just have lucked into this thing where, we have, from a live perspective and then on the records, like, we have truly incredible musicians in our band. Like, some of the best musicians in the world, period, are in this band. And I that's like something I feel really confident in. So then you're just like, you're in this crusade to just find as many people to get in front of, because whether that's, us selling out or whatever that is like, that's just like not even a concern at all to us, in the sense that it's like, we feel like we have this thing that works, that's honest, that's everything you would want in a band. Is like, okay, we've got this great thing, now just go get as many people in front to hear it. And so that's really it. It's just this clarity of that. It's not like we're not trying to be niche or cool or whatever, anything like that, or like we joke about the idea of like selling out or something like that, because in our world of like indie rock or whatever, there's this, it's dying, which is great, but there's this really funny paradigm of being a sellout because you are essentially having like
success.
Yeah, and you use the word mainstream. It's like mainstream success, but like, think about what mainstream means. It's like, it's just like regular people are hearing your stuff.
Yeah.
Like, who wouldn't want that? Like, who wants like some guy who is like very specific about what he likes and is here today, gone tomorrow, and is very critical? Screw that. Like, I want regular people like me to be like, this is dope, I like this. That's the goal.
You guys have some weird pre-show things that you do. Do you still do a chant where you scream dad?
You've done your research. We do. That dates back
Why?
to like, part of it is we're just weirdos, but I can tell you it dates back to we, like I said, we had the song Astrovan, and right after that there's this moment where I remember, like from a movie, I'm like walking down the street. I get living in LA at the time, I get a random phone call, and like, again, you're in this weird mode where you're like, I gotta pick this up. No one picks up random numbers anymore, and I didn't either at the time, but it was like from Texas, and I pick it up, and it's good I did. It's someone being like, hey, I know this is crazy, but I just the manager at the time of the Head and the Heart, I guess, had just heard Astrovan or something, and they were playing the Greek Theater. It's like from a movie, and he's like, it was like maybe 4 p.m, and I had a job and everything, and he's like, can you be at the Greek Theater in like 2 hours? Not to play, but like, people want to meet you and this and that. And I'm like, who the hell? Like, how is this happening? Things just started happening. Like, things started happening. not that we were like blowing up or
No,
anything.
but they continued to fall into place.
Exactly. And so the story of the DAD thing is that we just got thrown into this blender of like, everything you're doing, you got the butterflies, like, all right, like we're going for it. And we got a show at the Mercury Lounge, shortly thereafter, after meeting management and everything like that. And we were so nervous. Like it felt like we've played big shows since then, Red Rocks, done these things. I have never been that nervous for a show in my life, like to the point where you're like, I got to get my hands to stop shaking so much, or I'm not gonna be able to play guitar. And we were all sitting together in the back of the Mercury Lounge. We're like, we got to do something really weird to just like, we got to do something weirder than what we're about to do. And someone just started chanting DAD, like dad, and we all just started doing it. And it was this really weird thing. I don't know. I've made the joke that like maybe there's like dad issues in the band, and like at our darkest, most nervous moment, they just started pouring out or something. But no, I and then it just became a funny tradition, and it's really, really funny because now we're like a little less nervous for the shows, I guess, and we'll bring people in, like like sometimes there's people side stage and they see us kind of walk up, and we always do it right side stage and just kind of do a hands in kind of thing. And we'll bring people in, we'll be like, get in here. And we usually do a thing now where it's like, we'll do the dad. Someone will give a little bit of a toast, and we'll find someone who's like nervously standing side stage, like, get over here, give us a speech. And they're like, and then the next thing they know, they're chanting dad, and away we go. It's pretty silly.
Needed to start the show.
Yeah, it's good. Like, I think so much of it is like, we're sports fans. Mm-hmm. Some of us, at least, not all of us, and being in a band, it is like, I grew up playing sports. It is very similar. Like, you have this thing where you're going out to compete in some sort of way with yourself, sort of to try to be better than the last show. Or we do like a lot of improvising in our show. So like, there are nights where you're on fire, and like collectively you're on fire, and so that like hands in thing is sort of like a moment where it's like, here we go, like let's go do this together, and let's go make some memories.
You really can't improvise as musicians without really deep musicianship and chemistry, right?
Yeah, no, and something when we're just here, I'm here actually rehearsing for this tour, and we essentially practice by improvising and working together and trying to find things. And yeah, it's not something we always did, because in the beginning, I think there are, and pop music is sort of has dancing, right? Like the live show for pop music is often really about incredible dancing. Theatrics, incredible dancing. I was on this last tour, I saw Dua Lipa, mind-blowing, just like, but the performance outside is pretty much the song that you would hear on the radio with incredible dancing, really choreographed dancing. But then you get to this like folk music stuff that we were talking about. And the thing that I think is pretty limited about it is it's typically not like great dancing, right? You don't see like white dudes with beards like doing splits, but what you get is more of what I call like talent show, live performance, which is often incredible. You get great live harmonies, you know, some good playing maybe, but it's the songs, right? It's the songs you heard on the record being performed live. Maybe there's some confetti or something, I don't know, but that's pretty much it, right? And I call that like talent show performing, and that's what we were for like 2 or 3 years, because you're just trying to get really good at playing the songs live. But then you achieve that, and it's like, for us, it's like that thing of pushing and showing, like, you know, that, hey, I just said on this that we have like some of the best musicians in the world, so how do you prove that?
Yeah, flex.
You flex and you play and you show that, like, when we're in rehearsals and we're playing, like, some of these licks that people are playing are like, ooh, but they're not, that's not part of the record. And so how do you bring that in? And so the last, like, you know, maybe even the last like year, it's a little scary, because you're like, all right, we're going into this, it could bomb. And for the most part, to us, sometimes it does, but as a fan, like,
you don't see it.
Seeing people like, you know, our piano player is incredible, Jackie McLeod, incredible piano player, classically trained, and can just shred blindly all over a piano. But she'll have nights where she comes in and she's like, I'm so sorry, guys, like, I just blew that Phenomenon jam. I'm like, what? You know, because from my perspective, even as like a trained musician, I'm like, she's flying all over the keys, but she feels like somewhere in that she, hit a note that's outside the key, and it was kind of a bummer for her, like, and it bummed her whole thing out. But that's the ceiling of it, I think, and I'm rambling here, is just that, like, for the audience, then it's like the talent show thing plus, right? It's like you get this unique experience, and we're really pushing towards that.
So no two Mountjoy shows are the same.
It's getting that way.
Sick.
I think that's a goal of ours, and it's getting that way.
It's kind of like what John Mayer and then what Dead and Company do too.
100%. And like I said, I didn't say this, but
there's a tie to
Grateful Dead.
Yes.
Yeah, we started covering. Honestly, really our entrance. I'm a big Grateful Dead fan. I just my dad was a Deadhead, and I just like grew up with it. I didn't even know until I was like 15 that there was like a whole thing around the Grateful Dead. Smoking pot and this and that.
A lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly, lifestyle. And then you sort of realize that, and a lot of people are turned off by that, which I deeply actually get, but because you're either with that or you're not, or whatever.
You're either with us or against us.
Yeah, it feels that way. Like even within music, like I'll sort of like somewhat sheepishly be like, oh, I'm like a big Grateful Dead fan, and some people are like, oh, I hate the Grateful Dead, and I'm like, they're a polarizing band, I think.
Yeah, but by the way, like they also like people would tour with them, fans, like they would give up swaths of their life
Totally
to just live it.
It's remarkable. They are maybe my, like, when I think about, you talk about learning the game, you look at what they've accomplished outside of this sort of music industrial complex, if you will, outside of that zeitgeist. They've got, just people on the NBA sideline wearing Grateful Dead shirts. They've dipped into every aspect of culture without any real hits.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
What they did is remarkable, and it's proof that you have this music industrial complex, which is super important, right? I'm not like here shitting on that, but it doesn't need to be your path to the top. It is a thing that can give you rocket boosters and really help you get there. But I think what they proved is that ultimately, and I really, really believe, like now more than ever, when we're so locked into our phones, what people love about that, or what some people love about that, is a put your phone in your pocket and let these masters of their instruments take you somewhere for an hour and a half. Let you be present in a moment that is about a unique experience too. So that's something that I look up to a lot.
That's art and community.
100%. And those people are following it around in part because you can. Think about the talent show thing I'm talking about. You're not going to go see a band 6 times that does the same set list, and at the same moment the confetti shoots out each night. And at a certain point, that's the definition of insanity.
It is.
Yeah.
By 3 or 2,
yeah. So what they're doing is they are creating for themselves also, remember, because there's the monotony of doing that where it's like, here come the confetti. By
the way, most artists that can actually withstand touring from a mental health perspective are the ones that change the show up every night, or the ones that like have loose cues but like vocally can do whatever the fuck they want because they're not beholden to a track.
Totally. And look, my goal is not to like slander people who are doing that type of show. There's a beauty to that too, and like there's a lot of like skill that goes into that. I just think for me and for what we're doing and the way our band is constructed with like great players and people that like the Grateful Dead and stuff like that, it sort of is a natural path for us.
And it's also like keeps it fresh, and it's a challenge, and it's gosh.
Totally. And I think you're seeing more people do it, and I also think we're not the only ones obviously doing it, and like whether it's Billy Strings or there's a band Goose, like you have people selling tickets in a way that's like there's something happening there, and I think it's really beautiful, and I in part because, and Sam and I were talking about this the other day on a ridiculous train ride from San Diego to LA right after Comic-Con. Ridiculous. The most ridiculous train ride maybe of my life. But,
I mean, just a bunch of weirdos on it, right?
Well, yeah, but they had overbooked the train by like 100 people.
Whoa!
And so, no, like, we didn't have a seat.
Okay, this is not like a subway ride. This is an hours-long journey to. You don't fucking overbook. No.
Yeah, I had my guitar, everything. Anyways, I'm talking to Sam, and we were talking just about music and where it's at. And the thing is like, you can predict what's happening in this way where TikTok is essentially, in my opinion, is doing so well because it just took everything that was doing well on social media and it condensed it. And as the world continues to, as our attention spans condense, so too does the social media, and the things we consume become shorter, more rapid. They're just fighting, no one's watching your like 1 minute long explanation of your day. They want a 15-second like quick reel, right? Like, at least,
Totally.
And so the question is, does it just keep shrinking down until like at what point do people do a thing where they say, oh, I need to like go watch someone play guitar or something, like, like I have a line in our song Lemon Trees, like, someone play guitar for me, I'm ready to leave my body. Like, it's just this idea of like, you get so sucked in to your phone or to this sort of doom culture that I'm not saying is not real. There's a lot to be afraid of in the world right now, but we're here, like, and until we die, we're here, right? So let's make the best of it. And I think music has always been an escape for people, and I think it's really easy to escape into a thing where you feel like you're watching something natural happen.
Do you really wear a pair of sunglasses that you dropped in the toilet?
Dang, you really pulled these.
Why would you do that? Why would you put that on your face?
I think they're these, honestly. I think they're these sunglasses.
So you dropped them in the toilet, and did you actually go to the bathroom on them?
I don't think he peed on them.
No.
I was like, you know what? I'll take them out now.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh no, you were in the act of urinating.
I started to be like, I don't think I peed on them, but
No, you did.
I think I did.
What?
I peed on them.
And then you pulled them out? You just
Fuck.
Here's the thing. I have no excuses, but I'll say this. I don't wear sunglasses very often, but when I do, they're the ones I pee on.
So you're literally at a truck stop, you're going to the bathroom, you're urinating, doing your business, and I guess you're looking down at what you got, and your glasses fall off your face.
That's right.
And they fall right in the toilet. I'm assuming...
I respect that.
So you keep going, but how do you get them out? Oh, jeez.
This was a while ago. I think I just reach in and grab the suckers, but I do remember. I do remember, like, the conundrum. We were in a van at the time. This is like a big pull. Like, how many years did you pull this from social media or something?
It's a long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, because like I'm straining genuinely. It's embarrassing, but I am also straining to remember exactly how it went down. But I think what happened was, peeing, sunglasses go in. I am touring in a van, which, we're talking about the difficulties of touring and trying to sell tickets and everything like that. We were doing really well. And by the way, like, I should say, I think Mountjoy is doing really, really well. And we're also wondering why, like, right? Like, we're asking these same questions to ourselves. But at the time, we're touring in a van and not making lots of money. Things are going well, but, like, I have these pair of sunglasses, which I've had for years. And they're Ray-Bans. I probably spent like $100+ on these. Mm-hmm. And so these are as good as like an engagement ring at the time. I'm like, I can't let go of these. Like this, it's my pee at the end of the day.
Yeah, you know what it. Yeah, you know where it's coming from.
So obviously, I remember pulling them out. I washed them a bunch in like a literal truck stop, soap and water, the whole thing. And I remember coming back to the van, and everyone's like sitting there, and I'm obviously I have a funny story to tell, so I tell the story. And I do remember there was like a pretty split decision as to whether like I could possibly ever put them on my face again. But here we are, years later. The story is history. History. I don't know what the expression.
You said it was a true comeback story, and the fact that like it's prevailed this long, you still wear them today. I can't believe I'm in the presence of them.
Yeah, you really are.
I mean, this is the truest of true comebacks.
I've never. What's really funny about that? I forgot that I did that, and the other day, these sunglasses are kind of jacked up. Obviously, they've been in a toilet full of piss. But I've never owned a pair of sunglasses as long as this. You know, like usually you pay for sunglasses and you
lose
sit
them.
on them or you put them in a toilet or whatever. But these ones have, I guess that's a special relationship, right? Like maybe I'll have these the rest of my life now that I think about it.
I actually hope you do.
Yeah,
Even if you retire them at a certain point and they're more to look at, you know?
for sure.
They're more to look at. What are you thinking over there?
So the newest album, why did you guys call it Orange Blood? Because I keep confusing it with Blood Orange.
Yeah, you're not the only one. You know, we have a song called Lemon Tree. There's Orange Blood. Like it's when we were like rolling stuff out, people would be like, "Oh, I just love Orange Tree," and like everyone was getting all twisted up. You know, I basically I lived in LA for like 5 years. Really just moved at the top of the pandemic. And on the way out was writing this record, and on the way out stopped in Joshua Tree, did the whole thing.
Written in Joshua Tree, though, produced in Philadelphia?
So I sort of was writing a lot at the time. So I some of it's written, some of it's actually made in LA, but after the fact. So I go to Joshua Tree. I don't even know if I had my guitar with me at the time, but you know, you're just sort of like always making voice notes and thinking about. It's easy for me as a writer to start with sort of like just a really broad concept, and then you can sort of just flow from there. I find it hard to just like sit down and be like, I'm a believer, you know, whatever. I don't know, like I don't know what was that. I don't know.
And then I saw her face.
Yeah, I think I just did that. But yeah, I've never written that song by accident. But so I have this general idea. But sorry, Orange Blood was I was in Joshua Tree and tripping a little bit, and you know, you just get really. And I've since heard that this is actually like a thing that happens in your brain when you hallucinate with mushrooms, is like it centers you to like the earth, like to your surroundings, and like everything we're talking about, right? Like at the end of the day is like this super silly distraction against this larger cosmic event of which we're all a part of as well. And when you're in Joshua Tree and on shrooms, you get super connected to that larger cosmic event, and I started like really getting interested in the stars, in the way that they move across the sky at night, and you know, no phone, and just tripping and watching the stars and watching the moon dance across the sky and everything like that. And you realize like this Orange Blood thing is that we have this like internal struggle, our own blood, but then at the end of the day, like regardless of what the world is doing or the decay of society or government or ticket sales, whatever it is, like the sun just faithfully gets up each day and it does this incredible dance, and the earth spins around, like, and it truly is incredible. And I know I'm not breaking news, and I think for me, it just centered this idea of like wanting to make a piece of art or a record, and just the intention of that record to be like to just give people this moment of almost meditation, right? Where it's like where they're present in this music and they get to be outside of that micro life that they live in, right? And like, and just to have these reminders, whether it's meditation or music, whatever you use, you have to have something. Even if it's just interest in the solar system, you have to have something that allows you to realize that you're existing on so many planes. Like you're existing in your relationship planes with people, you're existing in your relationship to the world and to your surroundings, and then you're existing in your relationship to like music and these other things that you like and the things that you derive joy from. And so Orange Blood was just this idea that, you know, the sun is also like the blood of the universe, right? It's this thing that keeps everything alive, and I thought about how music can be that too. Like it can be this like life force for people, and yeah, sort of heady, but that was a trip thought.
Do you craft lyrics or the story that you're going to tell in the song and then bring it to the band? Like, what is the process like? Obviously, you start writing, you go wide. But like once it's written or you have an idea, like at what point do you add instruments to that?
Yeah, typically, like at least on this last record, the process is like excuse me, find a melody or chord progression that I really like and start building it out with voice notes and stuff like that, and then bring it to Sam, who is, like I said, he's just really good at, like, first of all, he's a good sort of like A&R, if you will, of like, you know, I can kind of tell because I know him really well. We've known each other for a long time, and it's like, you know, if you like show someone like I don't know if it's clothes or whatever, like shoes, whatever, you're like, yo, check these out, and the person's like, those are dope, but like the way they say dope,
You just know.
Yeah.
you're like, you know, whatever it is, and that's a good exchange. So it's like I show it to Sam, and if he lights up, I'm like, all right, let's keep digging at this, and then this last one, it's like once we get a little bit of a demo down, send it to the band, they add their parts, and they kind of fill it in and help us arrange, you know, bass and piano and drums, and yeah, that's typically how it's done.
How do you know when it's finished?
That's a great question. I think it's this. I think it's more of a feeling thing. You know, like we had the song Lemon Tree, which we quote unquote finished like 3 different times and used a different producer at one point. Came back to the original producer, and it's just a feeling thing, you know, because you have this. For anyone who creates any type of art, I think it starts with a vision, and then you get that, you know, you show Sam or like you show your friend and you get that, like they light up, and so you feel this feeling of like this has this ceiling, right? And it's an imaginary ceiling, of course, but you're like, this could be something really great, and it makes me feel something. And then when you listen back, that's a really difficult thing. I think any musician could tell you, like, from the original idea to hearing it back through speakers, there's a long journey. There's a lot of arranging. There's a lot of stuff where shit can just go wrong. And I think you listen back and you want to feel that feeling. Like you want to zoom out of being involved in the band even and just be a fan of music, which we all are. And does it hit you? Like, does it do the right things? And honestly, that's a hard thing, right? So like, that's rare, and those are the songs that make the record, when you're like, wow, that like made the hair on my arm stand up or whatever it is.
It's that feeling.
Yeah.
Why'd you end the album with Bathroom Light? Because it seems like there's also a line on that song that stands out on the song and the album, the one about because someday we must return the movies in our brain in these moments we can't fake.
Yeah. I mean, I think that line, also just really loved the idea, again, of like, I'm trying to make people realize their like greater importance to each other and also like to the world in a time where we're getting sucked into this like really toxic relationship with things, I think, in general, and just ending this record on Tell Your Friends, Tell Your Ma that you love who they are. It just felt like everything I was ultimately trying to get out of this, like just sort of like go easy on people, you know, like it's crazy out here, but we're all doing this together, and ultimately if you can take a breath, whether it's from music or whatever, and just be grateful for your surroundings and the people you surround yourself with, like that's like the most I could ever hope for as a writer.
A neat reminder that everybody could use.
Yeah.
By the way, you got to listen to Mount Joy. There's going to be a link in the description below. Listen to Orange Blood. Final thought, Daniel?
Yeah, you mentioned shrooms. Are shrooms and psychedelics, like, was that important to putting this album together? Did it have a big effect on it?
I think so, only in the sense that like I had done shrooms like a handful of times, and like acid too, but in this way that was like, I'm gonna like, you know, blast off and see something crazy. Like it lacked intention. And it wasn't until that Joshua Tree moment where I realized like you can have this really intentional
it matters the most
Yeah.
with psychedelics.
Yeah, totally. And I was also just like too young, I think, to really get that when I was, you know, first experimenting with that stuff. But yeah, I think it did in the sense that it helped to build the intention of the record.
Now, the one other song I wanted to ask about was a Johnson song.
Mm.
You didn't know that was a penis reference when you first wrote it?
Oh man, that was like one of the like roller coaster moments of my career as a writer was so we have this joke, another inside joke with the band that's like something could be a Johnson, right? Like there's just so many humbling moments being in a touring band, and like you know, for example, we had a show once where we showed up and like things were going great. We sold a bunch of tickets and we're really excited. And it was during the gas shortage or whatever that was.
Mm-hmm.
And so the security just like sort of decided collectively not to show up. So we don't have any security for a show, and people are literally, we're in the bus and we're like flagging cars to show where to park, because this is like a drive-in type event. So it's like people have to park like in this field in North Carolina, and like the band is literally out flagging cars on this country road like, that's a Johnson.
Sure is.
Yeah, like, and so we'd be like, oh, this is such a Johnson. Like, oh my God. And it started back in our band days, and it like obviously was connected to a dick joke or euphemism back then. But like it's 6 years in, and like I might be like, hey, I'm thirsty. Can you pass me that Johnson? Like, it's everything. It's just like a language for the band. So I wanted to make a song to celebrate that, like just within the band and live. It's just fun for us. And I literally, like, the idea is, like, the chorus is dance away because a Johnson's coming. And, pause. And the idea was, like, simple. It was just a goofy song that was, like, have your fun and, like, be in the moment, because, like, there's going to be a dip in the road, like, eventually. So you got to live it up while you're here. It was just a simple, not trying to be too poetic type thing. And we're in Philadelphia recording it with Caleb Nelson, who's an incredible producer, and he turns to me, cut the vocal, sounds great to me, I'm laughing, having a good time. He's like, this song's just like a big like dick joke, right? And I'm like, no. And he's like, a Johnson's coming? And I was like, I literally stared at the wall in the studio for like 10 seconds, just did one of these where I was like, I thought we had to scrap it. Like, I was like, oh, it's like, that's weird as hell. Like, what even is that? And then, you realize like so much music is like goofy and that. And I was like, you know what? Let's just celebrate it. Fuck it.
And you didn't do it on purpose.
Oh, not at all. Literally not at all. I mean, it's this long-standing inside joke, and hilarious.
Totally organic, totally natural.
Yeah, so I now, like, at shows and stuff, I do tell that story a little bit because it's so funny.
Listen to Johnson, listen to Mountjoy, link in the description below. Also see him on tour. You guys start next week. Mazel tov.
Hey, thank you guys. Really appreciate you having me.
Well, yeah, anytime.
One other thing, you make a Eagles tailgate reference on Cardinal.
Yeah.
Sick. That's what when I was listening, I was like, that's definitely what that paint the bus green is.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I've been going to Eagles. I grew up in the Philly area, like I said, and been going to Eagles games, and yeah, like me and a group of friends, including we have a mutual friend.
Mm-hmm.
He's a part of that. Our family bought like a broke down school bus and painted it green, and like somehow that thing is still alive. And yeah, we drive it down and park and eat hoagies, do the whole Philly thing.
Yep.
It's fun.
Garner Minshew actually selling his mini bus right now.
I know.
So if you guys need a new one,
that's probably the best idea I've heard today, honestly.
Fly, Eagles, fly. That's what they
that's
say.
it. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. Listen to Mountjoy. Link in the description below. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.